Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at QuickBooks Connect 2021. And we are here in this fabulous day just to present an amazing panel that we have available for you today. Business automation efficiencies for the future. And the main thing that we want to bring to you today is that we are in a different world, in a world that you not only provide products and services, but you also provide an experience. Businesses are out there understanding that the main thing is time, and time is money. And the way that we can conserve that time is through automation. We are here to provide to you all the tools and all the resources that you need to automate all your business, and specifically in tools with inventory and sales taxes. And today we're here with Nate Flake and Clayton Goodhue, and they're here with you to be able to present not only the resources, but the software that are going to help you to automate your business. Thank you so much, Nate, and thank you so much, Clayton, for being with me today. My name is Vanessa Vasquez, and I'm going to introduce you to each of these panelists. Nate Flake is not only the Vice President of the operations for Fishbowl, which is the inventory management software, not only for small business, but also for the medium growing small business out there. He has a background on project management with a revised, not only have received a master's in business administration for Thunderbird School of Global Management, but he has always helped grow Fishbowl in different ways. He has been in Fishbowl for 8 years, and he has developed not only the client implementation team, but also the strategic partner program and the QuickBooks sales and service team. And Clayton, which is with us today, he's a senior manager for the emerging business group at Avalara. He is located in the corporate headquarters of Seattle, Washington. And he has been with Avalara for 9 years, also developing strategies and leveraging technology to navigate the complexities of sales taxes. When he's not talking about taxes, he is also enjoying the Pacific Northwest outdoors, and also enjoying an 8-month baby that he just is learning about how to be an amazing father. Thank you so much, guys, for being here with me. And thank you so much for providing this platform for the business automation. So we're going to start with you, Nate, talking about most of the main things that business are struggling or understanding is where to start, right? What processes are customers first looking to automate in their businesses? And where do they start? What is the journey that they have to make to automate their businesses?
Thanks for having me, Vanessa. So it's interesting. A lot of our customers we see in the SMB space, the very first item of business is automating their accounting system, right? When the money comes first. So we see kind of the logic behind these choices of where do I automate? Where do I spend my resources for software and to make my life easier? It starts with kind of your needs and wants. And so obviously accounting is a need. They call it, mission critical software, things like accounting, obviously taxes. Avalara is going to, Clayton's going to speak to that as far as Avalara, how they fill the gap there. Fishbowl does your inventory management. And it's kind of fun to see where these companies, depending on where they are on their roadmap from if they're a five employee company all the way up to 500 and doing millions a year, those needs are going to be different. So it really depends on where your needs and wants are. But I would definitely say whatever's going to help you save up time to really focus back on the customer and wherever you can automate there, that's going to be the win. Because at the end of the day, everything revolves around where can I save my own time, right? Like you said, time is money. Where can I save my time? Where can I automate? And that's when you really have to start making those business decisions of what software to use and kind of where do you begin. But yeah, definitely, it's kind of a fun roadmap as you get into the different needs of the companies.
That is exactly what we have seen with businesses when they struggle to automate in a specific process, because they want to really understand where do they have to go, but specifically they want to continue doing what they love. And they come to business not to do accounting. They don't come to business to track their sales taxes. They don't come to business to understand if they have inventory or not. They just want to sell. They just want to do what they love. And most of the main things that we see with businesses is that when they lack this type of automation, when they lack this type of softwares, then they see themselves doing it manually and struggling with that manual effect, right? That comes to businesses when they lack these efficiencies. So, Clayton, if we talk about efficiencies, then we have to talk about what are some of the changes that we have seen that it has caused automation to be the solution for businesses when they lack of efficiencies come to their businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting topic. And unless you are working with Nate or working with Clay, you're probably not in the business of either maximizing strategies around inventory or optimizing strategies around tax, which means inventory or tax, they're just part of doing business, right? Most companies have to have a strategy on how do they get their goods or services to the end consumers. And most companies, barring some very unique circumstances, have to deal with tax. So if we look at the way that automation plays into both of these spaces, and I speak through the lens of tax, we certainly can talk about reallocating resources and figuring out complex challenges like tax through technology. So, but I want to touch on something that Nate alluded to, and it's an interesting thing we've seen in the last couple of years. And I love whenever I can talk about how tax impacts something that's really core to a business. And I think if we look at just this interesting acceleration of a trend in the last 2 years, it's really customer experience becoming more at the forefront of what a business needs to think about, right? Consumers or customers these days have more availability to different options, and the way that companies need to differentiate themselves is becoming unique and certainly accelerated in the last couple of years with, the whole pandemic. And if you look at the way that tax plays into that, certainly there's, again, the story around how do I automate processes to reallocate my time, energy, and effort towards figuring out the next cool way to attract the consumer to my company. But tax manifests itself in every part of that, right? Inventory manifests itself in that directly as well. If you have the best product, but time and time again, you tax your customers improperly, you overcharge them by a couple of percent, you don't know the way that your product is supposed to be taxed, which varies state by state, that leads to a negative experience with your customer. And albeit minor, and albeit a nuance, and albeit, maybe you're processing a $5 refund in tax because you charged them too much, the customer's going to remember that about your experience. And certainly, maybe much more paramount on the inventory side. But as this consumer becomes more important and has more power and more options, how you create a positive consumer experience, both with the reallocation of effort and resource to go drive those strategies, but with the sort of the practicalities of inventory and tax, it's a big thing we've seen in the last couple of years that we're seeing more and more paramount to a company when they're evaluating, do I automate my inventory strategy? Do I automate tax?
And that is true in every single area of our businesses, right? We see it not only with the sales taxes, we don't only see it on the inventory for those companies that have inventory, but we also see it in the services, right? If we have a business that deals with inventory and had to deal per se with the sales taxes, then we see it on the side of when the customers responds to those customers that have just bought, right, something, if they have supply chain, if they have the resources to comply with their sales taxes, depending on what side of the United States they are, or who, what state they're in, if they have to comply with state taxes or with county taxes or with city taxes, or what type of product they're selling, right? So we see that those changes of automation only when it triggers, right? When it's that point in time when they see, what do I do now, right? And we not only see it on this side as advisors and as software developers, as a client, when you guys deal with the programs development for implementation, for sales, but we also see it when a customer comes to us, a business comes to us and say, how do I do this? Right? From zero, from scratch. So on guiding on that, through all this time, and we will see it not only because we're going through in a specific situation in the world, right? That all of us, we know what it is, and we really will leave it to everybody's imagination, but also we see it because the technology is available. And we are developing, and we're talking about something that is very specific to all of us. We sometimes want to become perfect on the software, but we know that we have to get it out. And then when a situation happens, we just get it out and we just prove it to be right? That is what people understand and need. And in that case, we have a specific question for both of you. How do you see those trends take you to automation and changes in the business growth?
Well, I'll start with that. So one thing you said, Vanessa, it's more being proactive than reactive to things. You hear of like these stories like, hey, we get it all the time. Hey, we need to track our inventory. We need to do it yesterday, right? And if you're coming with that situation, yeah, we can work with you obviously, and we want to help you, but you're a little too late, right? Like who knows what revenue you're losing in that 6 to 8 weeks it takes to go through the implementation. Probably way more so on the Avalara side, Clay, right? Like I don't even want to imagine what back taxes and sorts of things you start to run into. But so I think being proactive, right? As far as like trends, I think the biggest thing, the two big things I've seen, and this is pre-pandemic, right? The pandemic just accelerated all of this. It was headed that way anyways. Everyone demands things in the cloud, which is obvious. We hear that buzzword all the time. But it's industries that are slower to move. One point, Clay and I spoke about at some point was grocery stores, right? They're historically pretty slow to move on things. It just kind of sped up that thing, right? Hey, how do you bring your customers closer to the buying process? How do you involve them more? Well, you go to the cloud, right? Same thing with inventory, same thing with tax. Avalara is a cloud software. Fishbowl has an online version now, as well as a hosting solution that we developed, luckily right before the pandemic, and we had that in place and we were able to offer that. I think the second thing besides the cloud is just visibility, and what I mean by that is it's kind of outdated now to have basic reporting, right? There's so many AI tools out there and big data tools like that show you crazy insights on what you can be doing if you're not using, and they're not crazy expensive either. They're relatively affordable for what you get and what you need. And some of these cloud solutions just blow me away. But advanced reporting, it was a huge thing we see in our client and prospect base. It's like, hey, we need to see what items are selling fast, what's leaving the shelves, especially right now during all of the supply chain disruptions, I guess you could call it. So crazy delays is essentially what we're looking at right now. So
we are.
and so that's kind of where I'm seeing it. Clay can probably iterate on some of those points, but I think it's interesting to see where the trends are going, but it all comes back to like really just making that user experience as pleasant as possible, right?
What do you see, Clayton, changing? What are the trends that you see on the side of the sales taxes?
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of jump on Nate's point and just talking broadly about this concept of like business automation for smaller mid-sized businesses looking to grow. And I think Nate brings up a good point, right? The technology that's available to that type of company versus if we look 15 years ago, it's completely different, right? If we were to talk and Nate and I were to be on here 15 years ago talking about business automation tools, we would be talking to the upper mid-market and enterprise companies because those are the only people that could afford to do a premise-based deployment, get next level analytical reporting. Certainly that's the only option back then to automate tax. the space is just completely different now. And I think it lends itself to small businesses being able to use the tools that large businesses historically have only had access to give them a little bit of an equal playing field as they grow and they try to compete with, maybe a company that's been around longer than they have. So it's a great point, right? This new technology, the advent of cloud, really levels the playing field in a lot of respects. And that's how Avalara got its start. And, to Nate's point, just through the lens of tax and inventory, sort of the same, like, this is something that needs to be thought about from day one. And especially with tax, the best conversations that my teams have about tax, it's a growing company, they're getting started, they want to put a process in place to automate for the now. As they grow, this is a solution that scales. They don't need to think about tax, period. We also have the conversations with the company that's grown a lot. They had a manual tax process in place or no tax process at all. That's the expensive way to think about tax for a company. And, to Nate's point, I completely agree. Like customer service, I love being able to sort of tie tax as it relates to customer service, because the last couple of years, that's been a developing story. Most of the tax story boils down to a liability. It's a requirement for a company. It's a requirement typically from day one. As you grow, it will become more complex. The scale of it will grow. And to do it correctly to begin with, and look, you can be a business to consumer retailer, you can be a business to business manufacturer, software company. The challenge is different, but the challenge remains the same. How do I take care of something, automate something out the gate, ensure that as I scale, I have a solution that scales with me to make sure that I don't have liability from a tax perspective, and I can go focus on my customer experience, because that's what it's going to do. That's what's going to take to grow my business.
That's right. And one of the main things that I want to touch that I think is very important on that question, understanding that everything is changing and what are the trends, is that advanced reporting. When you talk about advanced reporting, not only for the inventory side, but also for the sales taxes on both sides is very important. And advanced reporting entails a lot of different things that gives them insight of their companies at any point in time. And I want you guys to give me a little bit of an example, just getting a little bit on that question and understanding about advanced reporting. How can advanced reporting affect, as part of their automation, their businesses on the side of inventory for you, Nate, and on the side of sales taxes for you, Clayton?
Yeah, so on the inventory side, advanced reporting it can go one or two ways, right? It can be very expensive, or it can make you a ton of money. And so a lot of people that come in and really know how to put the numbers to use in real life and in a practical way are able to forecast better. They're able to, do their purchasing better as far as forecasting demand. And okay, what do we do? A big piece of Fishbowl is the manufacturing piece, right? Where you're getting, 2,700 raw goods goes into this machine, and it takes one part not being there to mess up that sales cycle. And if you're doing a machine like that big, that's a huge revenue hit. And so a lot of people, like, Clay already pointed out this as well, as they're trying to come in after the fact and say, hey, how do I automate this, and how do I now get ahead of it? But there's so much missed opportunity. So as far as like forecasting is huge. Where sales are going as far as like seasonal, we have a lot of companies in food and beverage. We have people in construction. All of that stuff is seasonal, like construction especially. And so when people are ramping up, I mean, I'm having work done on my house right now, and I was the reactive, not the proactive one, and I'm not planning things right and not ordering things on time, and that's like a very, very small scale of what a company goes through. But it's the same thing, like not knowing what products need to be ordered by a certain month, and so on the inventory side, it's very heavy on the forecasting counts and forecasting scrap and waste and things like that. And so that's where we kind of see the need, and that's kind of where our developing team is trying to figure out kind of that combination of what information do people need, what do they need that they don't even know they need yet, right? So that's kind of the secret thing we're trying to do all the time. It's hard to nail down.
Yeah, and I can just piggyback on that point, and I think you're kind of tying back to everything we've been talking about. I think it's pretty safe to assume that if you're in an industry and you have a couple of competitors, that likely one or two of your competitors has automated this, and they have that insight, they have that knowledge, and they're able to make business decisions or reallocate a resource or spend extra time figuring out my digital experience or whatever it is, because they're not worrying about this, or they're not pouring resources in, or they're not, I love it. And I have certainly places in my life that I'm reactive. They're not being reactive to tax in 3 years and writing a big check that you're not writing. So the advanced reporting thing from a tax perspective, I'll give it through the lens of a small business. And the advanced reporting that a small business is interested in tax is saying, it's very easy to implement. It's a very simple tool. It gets the correct tax applied back onto my invoices or my sales orders or whatever. And I have advanced reporting that I hope I'll never have to look at. But if I get audited in 5 years, the advanced reporting sits behind it, and I have access to prove I charged what I needed to charge if that ever becomes relevant. So certainly the story in tax for smaller mid-sized businesses, how do I automate something that makes it so simple that I don't really need to just become a wizard or hire someone that knows tax? But boy, oh boy, if that State Department comes knocking, I have every little detail, I have every little line item, I have every little why to prove that I did this the correct way.
And that is exactly what I want each and every one of you that are looking at this panel, that we have the tools. There are the tools right there. I'm as an advisor and always being a consultant with business owners, I see that every day. What you guys just tapped, what you guys just said, you guys are on the side of the software that are helping us with all those resources and being able to automate these businesses. But we see it as advisors out there. We see it every single day when customers come to us with a situation of inventory or a situation of sales taxes. And we are there just seeing, oh dear, how are we going to tackle this? How we're going to confront, the necessity of not having this tool to complete, right? A manufacturing piece of the whole process, right? Or how we're going to confront and we're going to be compliant to a specific office in the government. It doesn't matter if it's state, it doesn't matter if it's the city, but that we are there with all the tools that we need. So that is very, very important. So let's go with our following question. And remember to join us live for the Q&A at the end of this panel. One of the main things that we see that you guys have mentioned, each and every one of you, is that not having automation have consequences. And now we're going to talk about the consequences, right? What are the consequences of not having an automated process in place for all businesses, not only for the sales taxes, but also for the inventory? And Clayton, you tap a little bit on that. Can you expand a little bit about what are the consequences, specifically with sales taxes, when it comes to all the craziness that can involve? Because there's a lot of different details, percentages, products, specifications, type of businesses. How can you tell us what are those consequences?
Yeah, and it bridges together a couple of the elements that we've touched on in the first two questions, which is really, from a tax perspective, you're weighing these two sides of the coin. And if you're not automating it, typically you have to hedge one way, and that is compliance and customer. You need to, if I under collect tax because I didn't get the rate right or didn't understand how I tax, Texas taxes software differently than California, differently than Washington State, and I undercharge, is my customer going to be angry? Maybe, because maybe they have a requirement on their side. But, that activity kind of hedges more towards you have a compliance risk because you didn't collect enough tax. Similar concept on the other side. If you charge tax when you make a software sale in California, your customer comes back and is like, hey, wait a minute. This particular purchase, I know because I buy software. I buy things, believe it or not. You're not the first person I bought something from. I shouldn't be charged tax. And then you're going, how am I issuing a refund? So it's really hard. It's a complex topic. You're juggling compliance versus customer versus compliance. It manifests itself in very different ways depending on what industry you are in. But the sort of the sentiment remains the same. If you automate it, you have an accurate solution. It balances both sides of the equation. It keeps you right down the middle. And all that time and heartache where you're living on one side of the fence versus the other is just repurposed towards building your business. And I think that's the story for automation. You know, you always got trade-offs no matter what. That's the automation story in tax.
That is what it comes to the consequences. And when we talk about inventory as well, Nate, we have consequences of not having maybe in a specific part of piece. You were telling us, I guess behind the scenes, we can say that there is like customers that you have been together and being putting together advanced reporting that they know specifically a piece of the whole process that they need to have. And that is a consequence. If they don't have that, what could happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to missed opportunities, essentially, is, you know, not only, you know, you're missing out on revenue, you may miss out on a customer that might never come back to buy again. They may have bought that one, it's delayed. Sure, they didn't return it, but they're probably not going to buy from you again after that bad experience. Right. And it's sad because a lot of that stuff's preventable. I mean, just proper planning and making sure you have the right systems in place. I mean, we have customers that have to be very compliant on, you know, the inventory side as well as the tax side on what, you know, the deal with like chemicals or supplements or, you know, and that have very strict rules. And I mean, I could go into that all day, right? Of like, hey, if they're not tracking certain things and what chemicals they're putting where they're storing things like that, you know, that there's like legal repercussions at that point. And so you have, as far as consequences, besides missed opportunities, there's a lot of other kind of areas where, you know, a company could suffer because they're not doing these things that are, you know, pretty basic tracking, you know, so.
That is very important. And talking about that, we can say then that businesses see themselves as, well, if I have a specific tool for automation, I will be able to make it. I will be able to do the sales taxes. I will be able to have the inventory, but they don't see also that all of those tools are available and those resources are available, but they all keep on growing also. And they need a person or they need themselves to be able to understand, because some of the people that I have seen is that, oh, I have a tool on inventory and I know I can do it. I have one person that handles all the warehouses and I know where the serial number and I know what is this and I know what happened. And I have an Excel that just, I hit a macro and it does it for me. But then we find that these consequences are over and over because it can cost you a lot of money depending on in what piece of the process, what part of the pie are you cutting at that moment, right? And how advanced you are in your business. So that is one of the main things that we see on automation and efficiencies. And seeing that, some people don't see the future. Some people see where this is my square, this is my business, I'm going to grow it up to here. What happened if everybody wants to buy your product? What happened if everybody wants to get your service, right? And we saw it through this whole pandemic when we see in a specific, we need deliveries, right? We were talking behind the scenes. One of the main things that we said, well, through this pandemic, everything exploded when we didn't know that we needed companies that will do delivery for us, or we had an app that we can go for a supermarket and order something and pick it up outside. So those were automation that companies needed to do in a specific time to comply with everything that was happening in the world. And that is exactly what you guys do, not only with the side of inventory, but also with the side of sales taxes. Comply with the futures. And what are those future efficiencies that we need to be able to grow and expand our businesses? Because it's not only when the start, but when the start is the perfect time to do it, right? When a business starts, it is the perfect time to do it, to start with a good inventory automation and with a good sales taxes. But let's talk about the time when that business is growing, right? When that business is expanding. What are all those, and what do you guys bring as part of the resources to be able to continue automating these businesses in each and every one of those different steps, or even steps, that stages that they're in, right? So let's talk about, where do you see business automation going for future efficiencies? And Nate, you can tell us a little bit about that, and Clayton, you can fill it up with all the knowledge that we have also on the side of the sales.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that Clay said earlier that I really liked is whatever you're doing, your competitors are out there probably automating something, and that's interesting. On the B2C, like if you're the company selling something, that's true, but also if you're Fishbowl or you're Avalara, that's also true, right? Like your competitors are out there probably automating some type of the process that even your software allows, just a little bit better than you. So one thing that Fishbowl's tried to do is, as far as like where the future efficiencies are moving, is we try to look at our business like almost through the lens of our customers. Say, okay, where are the, we're a B2B company, but we're trying to almost act like a B2C company and say, okay, where are our clients going? I'm a user, right? I buy food, I buy clothing, I buy, services. So where would I want to be as a customer? And so, I mean, we talked about it, and this might as well be the title of this panel, is user experience, right? And user experience is everything, and whatever is automated, whatever can be automated should be automated, right? And even as a consumer, loyalty programs, things that are becoming very popular, we try to adapt our software to really provide tools for our clients to then offer to their end users, right? And so we try to see, okay, where are things trending? Customer loyalty is huge, customer experience is huge. How do we provide better tools for our customers to then look like rock stars to their end users, right? To their the people that are buying things. And so I think as far as efficiencies and where it's going, convenience is the name of the game, and it's just everything is getting more convenient. We joked on a call earlier, Vanessa, about how my wife will go to the grocery store for one single thing and we'll do curbside pickup. And I'm like, okay, you don't have any kids with you. This is getting out of hand. And she's like, hey, the service is there. Like,
we all do it. Yes. It's not only her.
And we kind of make fun of each other. And I'm like, okay. She's like, same thing as the drive-through. I'm like, yeah, you got me there. So it's like, just if you look at the trends of where food and beverage is going, construction, tech, especially, convenience, right? Like we're here in Utah. There's a ton of, like, you hear about the Silicon Slopes, right? And all these companies that are kind of emerging that weren't around 5 years ago, and they're all based on making the customer experience just easier, right? And we're inherently lazy people. I'll be first to admit it. And we want things to be convenient, and so we're trying to see, okay, as an inventory software, how do we make that a reality for our customers to then pass on to their end users? So that's kind of where I see things going. Clay, what are your thoughts on that? I think we agree on this, right? We're both around the same age, around the, loving all this convenience and ease of use stuff. So
yeah, it's like, so look, I spent all my day for the last 9+ years talking about tax. So anytime I can intertwine it with like an actual interesting, like, macro trend in our lives, let's do it. So Nate, I'm so with you. And I think the way that we act as consumers in our daily lives, they will manifest itself in the way that we do business, or the way that we choose to evaluate a software purchase the way that I operate going to the grocery store, or the way that, my wife orders paper towels or, or diapers, it will change the way that we think about making a business decision or making a business purchase. It's just, maybe not for all people, but for people like Nate and I, absolutely a fact. So it's a business opportunity. And when we think about the title, business automation, efficiencies of the future, like, think about the future of your company. So when I think about tax, and I think about the shift towards maybe a digital first strategy, or I'm going to get a website up and I've never done that, or I'm going to look at selling globally, because it's an environment where me purchasing an item sourced from the UK or vice versa is a very real thing. And the technologies that enable me to do that as a small business, they exist now and they didn't previously. And there's one or two stories that typically a company will undertake. If I say, I want to sell global, or I'm going to sell software, or I'm going to do a website, or I'm going to sell B2B. I've never done that before. I started as a B2C, website first digital brand. And it will either be like great creativity into the way that I go capture this market. I got my inventory strategy down, it scales. I got my tax strategy down, it scales. Let's go make it happen. And that's company number one in the space, and they're going to go gain that market share, find that customer first. Company two is calling Nate and saying, Nate, I don't really know how to do this, but I'm thinking about maybe going global, or I'm thinking about a new line or a new way or a new model. Let's talk about how you can help. Hey, Clay, what about this whole tax thing? Like, oh, whoopsie daisy, I actually haven't been doing it right for 5 years, but how do I go global? And those types of things, again, the companies like Fishbowl, companies like Avalara, they have solutions that are intended for now and the problems of now. But as you go and you sell and you change and you iterate and you are creative in the way that you operate your business, hey, great, let's just enable global functionality. Oh, did you know that now you have to handle duties and tariffs, which don't even get me started on customer experience, on how most companies handle. I don't know if you've ever gotten the little slip from the local post office, and it's like, hey, your awesome pair of pants is here, but you also owe us $50 in duties. Oh, the merchant didn't tell you about that? Well, come on down, pay us our $50 and we'll give you your package. Like, they're just completely different experiences. They're completely different ways that a company gets from where they are today to that future state. And you want to be the one of one, not the fourth one to get there.
That's right. And you guys have tapped on so many different things. And the main thing about what I hear is the experience, going back to that, right? But going back to the convenience of providing the experience with the resources that are out there, right? And understanding that automation is there. It is at the fingerprints. It is available. As Nate was saying, they developed already the online version of all this that is happening for the inventory. Clayton, you have been developing all this platform for Avalara for all the online as well. So it is there, and it is there for all this small business and medium businesses out there. And one of the main things that I have taken out of this whole panel is to understand that a small business not only need to provide for their customers, but also for them a peace of mind, understanding that they need to be able to do what they love and leave the rest to companies and to softwares like what you guys provide. It is my absolute pleasure to understand that we can do that to our customers, that we can bring that to our customers. I do that every day with customers that come to me and say, where do I start? How do I do it? Where is the right way to do it? How is the right way to do it? Well, are you going to sell? What are you going to sell? What type of services are you going to provide? What type of inventory are you going to provide? Are you going to produce? Is it going to be a production manufacturing? Is not? There's a lot of different questions that are like, oh dear, are you making a questionnaire because I'm getting married? No, this is actually questions that you should ask yourself when you're starting your business, because it's more expensive to ask those questions at the end. It is more expensive to have the problem on our shoulders and then have to deal with that. It's when people come to us, we also not only do the advisory and the accounting and consulting, but we also do the taxes. And when people come to me and say, why we have to pay so much taxes? I'm like, okay, because of this, and this. And this is the list of why you haven't done it before, or why you haven't, because you don't have. Starting back to the first question that Nate said, well, what is the first thing that you need to automate, right? Accounting. Because once you know your numbers, you can do the rest. And most of the people don't know their numbers. So that's why we are here. It has been my absolute pleasure, Nate and Clayton, to be with you guys. Join us live for the Q&A to all of you that are here in QuickBooks Connect 2021. Nate and Clayton, is there anything that you want to add to this amazing panel, this amazing session of business automation efficiencies for the future?
I'll go first, Clayton. So, I mean, the only thing I would say is we've talked about a lot, right? And it almost could maybe seem overwhelming. We're talking about efficiencies and how to automate and all these cool apps and reporting. I mean, at the end of the day, companies like Avalara and Fishbowl and QuickBooks, we know the mid-market, and everything we're talking about is integrated. You know, I've known QuickBooks for a long time. I've known Avalara for a long time. We integrate fully with both of those, and all of your journey is covered. So it's not like, okay, you know, we're talking about accounting, that stresses me out, of course. Okay, now we have inventory, and now I have to worry about taxes. Yeah, but all three of these products are married together and meshed together beautifully, where again, it's automated, right? Like, not to sound corny, but it's all automated together. And so all these softwares are fully integrated. So it may seem like a big bite to chew off, but in reality, I mean, all three of our companies are constantly working together to make sure that the integration is, how can we save time? How can we, you know, make it easier on the customer? So if you're just getting started and this seems overwhelming, I promise it's not. Like, it's all integrated. We make sure it's smooth. And at the end of the day, you have the peace of mind. So that's kind of what I wanted to leave off with. So.
Yeah, and I couldn't have said it better, Nate. And I just think that we've all been around for a while, right? We aren't new to the tax game or to the inventory game or to the accounting game. And we're certainly well in tune with one another and how the various parts impact. Certainly, you know, accounting impacts inventory, impacts tax. So it's a good point, and I think we leave it at that, right? We figured this out, and we help tons of companies that look and operate a lot like you to get them back to focusing on their business, and that's what they want. So I think it's a good call, Nate, because it's a lot of stuff, but you know, we are the experts, we are the leaders, you know, in these technologies that help companies focus on the thing that they're actually interested in focusing on, the things that keep them up at night for a good reason, not for a bad reason.
That's right. So guys, just to say, if they want to contact you, either contact you directly or your team, your implementation team or your business sales team, who do they have to contact? Where do they have to call? Who do they have to email? Where do I get you?
So, I mean, for Fishbowl, you can go to fishbowlinventory.com/QBC. We're going to have a landing page for this event specifically that gives you kind of information. There's a form fill. If anyone wants to contact me directly to talk about it, I'm on LinkedIn, Nate Flake, the bald guy with the beard on there. So I don't think there's many other bald bearded Nate Flakes out there, but yeah, I'd be happy to chat with anybody.
Yeah, same story for Avalara, avalara.com. Same story with Clayton on LinkedIn. Give us a shout. Number of different kind of questions that we got to answer so we can get you to the right person that can speak more to your specific business and your specific tax needs.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Clayton. Thank you, Avalara. Thank you, Fishbowl and QuickBooks Intuit for allowing us to be here and to provide this topic to all the business owners out there. Business automation efficiencies for the future. It is for you, and it is available right now. Thank you.